Welcome to the World Food Safety Day special edition of Industry Insights. Join Gillian, Kelleher, Darin, Detwiler, Roger Hancock and myself talking about this year's motto, Prepare for the Unexpected. Hello everyone and welcome to this very special edition of Industry Insights. Today this is an edition for the World Food Safety Day 2024 with a very great motto that we all can rely to. And it's been kind of going through our professional lives, and it's prepare for the unexpected. And I'm very happy to welcome Darin Detwiler, Gillian Kelleher, and Roger Hancock to this episode. And just for time's sake, I'll do the introduction this time. I mean, you know everyone who's participating anyways, so I'll make it real brief and real short and sweet. Gillian Kelleher led the food safety and quality programs at Wegmans Food Markets for many years. She's chair of the educational board of the Food Safety Summit in the US and got recently elected co-chair of the board of directors for Stop Foodborne Illness, the consumer advocacy group. She's president and CEO of Kelleher Consultants LLC. And I'm sorry, but I have to read all of this because this is not going to stick into my mind. And there's so much information here. Next is Dr. Darin Detwiler. He got involved in food safety because of a very tragic loss of his son and is now author and speaker, associate teaching professor at Northeastern University, founder and CEO of Detwiler Consulting Group LLC. And last but not least, we have Roger Hancock, and I don't need to read this because I've been working with him for years. He led Albertson's quality department for 15 years, and then he founded Recall InfoLink Inc. and is now working on creating a global recall-ready community, and is doing a great job participating in all kinds of different associations and just sharing his knowledge and expertise globally. And well, you know me as well. I'm Stephanie. I'm the General Manager of the Recall InfoLink GmbH in Germany, and I'm so happy to welcome you all today to this episode. And I think we should start by asking everyone why they became involved into food safety. And don't be offended, I checked with the group and they all decided I should start with Darin. So Darin, please share with us what got you started and what brought you into food safety.
Well, most people know that I lost a son due to an E. coli outbreak in 1993, and I have to admit it was unexpected. I was a nuclear engineer and engineering supervisor and a quality assurance inspector on a nuclear submarine, and we did so much work to prepare for things that would come our way. And being a father, losing a son was nothing that we ever prepared for. And I realized that, every case is different. Every family's involvement in food safety as a victim is different. But 31 years of watching the seemingly endless cycle of crisis and reform, where there are so many families who are living with a chair forever empty at their family table, or who live with lifelong medical complications and fears. And when I talk to so many of these families, I hear the same kind of thing. It's 2024. How is this still happening? I thought we solved these issues. I thought this was a thing of the past, things to that nature. So when we look at the idea of preparing for the inevitable, we have to consider that the way that consumers and the general public prepares for these things is a far cry from the expectations we have on industry in terms of preparing for a recall, preparing for these inevitable things. But the general population, the consumers, have a level of expectation that these steps are being taken by the manufacturer, by retails, by restaurants, and that these are the seatbelts and the airbags, and if you use that analogy, these are part of the overall picture of food safety. That not everything is put onto the shoulder of the consumer. And so I think that when I talk with audiences, it's really about the why behind what we do in terms of being prepared.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now to you, Gillian. What is your what brought you into food safety?
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you very much too for enabling me to be part of this panel. I think this is terrific, and I think we're honouring World Food Safety Day for everybody worldwide. So thank you for that. My background is fortunately versus Darin, very different. I came up Darin the traditional dairy science, food science route, a graduate of university in Cork in Ireland, and I ventured into, with my first company, a fabulous company, by the way, ventured into quality assurance because back in the UK, back in the day, and I'm really dating myself now, it was called quality assurance, and it was all about satisfying customer expectations, meeting the standards, the high standards for the product, and always better be safe. All right. So from the beginning, for me, the customer was always kind of front and center, and the specifications were what you were working to meet. And as I advanced in my career in different areas, it was in manufacturing, big time in Europe, and then in food service, and then in different functions as well over time. But when I had the opportunity to work with Wegmans Food Markets, that's when it came real up close to the consumer. And that was like a really good fit. And I was fortunate to be, our function was under the mantle, if you will, of the Consumer Affairs Department. So we got feedback from customers every single day. You'd get compliments, complaints, questions, you name it. But that feedback loop was super. And it really put me, not just as consumer for myself and my own family, but put the lens of the consumer really, really up close to what you're doing. Why, and to Darin's point, why it's so important. So I subsequently got involved GFSI for many, many years, Global Food Safety Initiative for safe food for consumers everywhere. Okay, and then also got involved with for consumers for in the US. It was more around stop foodborne illness, engagement with them. They're a consumer advocacy group. And for me, it's like coming home. It just feels right. It's a no-brainer that the consumer is front and center, and that we're all about. I happen to be big on prevention. Okay, yeah. So in my own company, all about prevention. Get it right first time. Work your hardest, and I like what I do. I love what I do, and I'm delighted to be here. Over to you, Roger, please.
Yes, please, Roger. Share your background story while you're in food safety.
Well, I followed neither Darin nor Gillian's path. It was a little bit coincidental also, though. My training is in public health, and I came to Idaho to lead a statewide public health program, and then got recruited to work for Albertsons, also based here in Boise, Idaho. And so I took a public health approach to this quality assurance food safety role at Albertsons, and really honed in on what's the consumer experience. Because there's no reason to have high quality, safe product if the consumer isn't happy. And the only thing that's going to make a consumer unhappy is a low quality, unsafe product. And so really I took this public health background, had the opportunity to apply it at the consumer level with a nationwide retailer, and we did 250 recalls a year. I mean, Darin, to your point, why are we doing 250 recalls a year in 2024? Why is the FDA issuing 1,000 recall notices in 2024? You know, and when I say, well, at Albertsons, we had 40,000 suppliers, so 250 recalls was less than 0.5%. Makes it sound not quite so bad. But for the public that's impacted by those 250 recalls that are not done efficiently and effectively and let defective product linger in the marketplace, it can be devastating. And through a business transition, I saw an opportunity. I was getting a view of this global food supply chain, the global nature of this recall problem that's a supply chain problem. And I thought, maybe I can solve this. And so I left Albertsons and started Recall Infolink to create a global platform for information exchange from manufacturer all the way through to the consumer. So the people are getting the information that allows them to protect themselves at the consumer level, protect their brands at the business level. So that's how I got into it. Public health, a public health perspective, public health context just grew into this recall space.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
I
I'm happy, and I thank you for putting this together, because Global Food Safety Day needs to look at global food safety issues and hopefully produce global food safety solutions for this global food supply chain. So thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's my pleasure, and I'm so happy to have the three of you participate in this interview, because I mean, yeah, it's a global approach. It's a global challenge, and food travels globally. All the ingredients, there is no stopping at any borders, and so we really need to make sure supply chains are safe, and there are preparations in place that, you know, at least prevent terrible things from happening, or try to do what's best or the easiest thing. And I really think prepare for the unexpected. When I first heard it, I was like, well, isn't that a no-brainer? But it's not. And there are so many smaller parts in this whole motto that you can really, you know, you can, for your own company, you can think of so many solutions, so many ways how to put that in place, to be prepared for the unexpected. So are there any specific approaches either one of you would like to share with our audience, you know, from your own perspective, so that you can, you know, share your specific expertise and tell the audience how they can be best prepared and protect their consumers?
Let me just jump in on this metaphor that Darin mentioned, because I think it has so much application. You know, we didn't always have seatbelts, and we didn't always have airbags. And who thinks of an airbag as a preventive measure? An airbag doesn't prevent an accident. An airbag is in response to an accident. But what the airbag does is it protects the people who are involved in the accident. Defective product, unfortunately, gets into the supply chain. It's the accident that happens. But having a good recall process in place for your supply chain, not just for your company, but for your supply chain, is like the airbag. It protects people from getting injured from this defective product. The defective product happened, it got into supply. And so an effective recall-ready community is actually a preventive measure. People don't think of it as preventive because it didn't prevent the recall from happening. Well, just like an airbag didn't prevent an accident from happening. But once the unfortunate thing happened, how do you prevent damage to your brand, damage to consumers, damage to your reputation? How do you prevent that sort of thing? Well, that's what a recall-ready community is all about. So I like that. I like that metaphor, Darin. Thanks.
Well, Roger, to build on that, you know, over the last 3 decades, as I've been looking at food safety, other things have changed. Yes, we have the internet now, which we didn't really have back then. But when you look at the idea of you know, drivers on the road that are on their cell phones, you know, you could also look at the fact that if you look at the driving landscape has changed, which is why, you know, perhaps it's a little bit more dangerous. You can look at the food landscape too. We have third-party delivery, we have ghost kitchens, we have online sales, we have cottage foods, we have third-party shopping, we have third-party or fourth-party. You know, there's so much more complication in the bigger food landscape. One person already mentioned already the idea that we get ingredients from so many different locations. And, you know, we have ready to eat foods, commercially packaged goods, more so today than we ever had before. And I'm really surprised when audiences not industry audiences, but when consumer audiences are still surprised, like, they think that when you buy a pound of hamburger at the grocery store, that it's from one animal, or they're surprised that, that there's ingredients from outside of the country, even if it's, a local company. There are, I guess, this disconnect between if we're preparing for food safety based on assumption that like we're 30, 40 years in the past in terms of the food landscape, then we're on a wrong step here. Well, that's not the way my grandmother used to do, my mom always used to do that. Well, that's a different time, right? Today, there are different things at play. And we have to think about the idea that if we're going to prepare for the inevitable, we're preparing in a different landscape, in a different set of situations than 30, 40 years ago. And I don't think that everyone has that concept understood yet.
I 100% agree, Darin. That is absolutely correct. And I think that's why it is so important to have things like the World Food Safety Day, or, interviews like this, or podcasts like you do, Darin. Just, make sure consumers get more information, and get the information on social media or whatever platform they are looking for. And I think we also need to have that in the back of our minds, to communicate better with the consumer, to inform them better, build the trust into the product again, and educate them in how to process food or ingredients, and wash stuff, and just look out where you buy your things, and be careful. With as you mentioned, those ghost kitchens, for example. I hadn't heard about them, but then when I did, it was like a huge shock to me. I would have not thought that something like that existed even. But yeah, those are all things that are running today.
It's easy to point to like ghost kitchens, but a few months ago, I had the opportunity to speak to the National Conference of State Legislators, and I wasn't talking about ghost kitchens. I was talking about the fact that on a road trip across the United States, some states have bare contact with food laws. Some states have laws that allow for it or that prevent it. Some states have laws that require food safety handling certification. Some states don't. There's such difference from state to state with these different elements that impact food safety that, one of the most important things about World Food Safety Day is that we tend to think that like food safety is one thing. But when you start looking at the difference in terms of how food safety is legislated across the US and then beyond the US, it's like so many different, I don't even want to throw a number out there. So many different interpretations of what is safe food, what is not safe food, what is safe practices, what is not safe practices, what is allowed, what's not allowed. I think that the biggest important thing for World Food Safety Day is to realize that we're acting as if we're a team playing a sport, but every time we go to the field, it's a completely different playbook. It's a completely different set of rules. It's a completely different enemy or opposing team, if you will, in terms of how food safety is interpreted based on wherever the food comes from in the world.
Yeah. And also in Europe, right, Gillian? I mean, you have a great perspective on that, comparing European approach to food safety compared to the US way. What do you say to that? You're muted.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I love what both Darin and Roger had to say, and totally agree with it. The funniest thing when I saw the tagline for World Food Safety Day is "Be prepared for the unexpected," I for some reason thought of the Girl Guides or the Boy Scouts motto from way back in Irish, which was "Be Olive," which means be prepared. Okay, and it really doesn't matter what industry or what circumstance, you need to be prepared. And as I mentioned before, prevention is the key. All right. But stuff happens. To Roger's point, stuff happens and you have to deal with it promptly, quickly, efficiently. So I guess my background over those many years in Ireland and England and France before I went to the US was all about systems and process. I'm very systems and process oriented. Okay. But your system is only as good as, and your process is only as good as you being current in what the issues are. current in what the science is? What are consumer needs all about? Because they're changing all the time. What are the best practices out there? So I'm a huge believer, and I was fortunate in the many companies I worked with that they too were like this continuous improvement. How can we be better? Okay, and this whole recall ready community is one such best practice. There are best practices out there, and over the years, companies, the progressive companies, whether they be retailers or manufacturers or food service companies, they are distribution companies, they embrace those best practices, they stay current. So for me, that's my background. Prevention is the key, but staying current on what the issues are, like Darin was mentioning, the circumstances change, the supply chain is changing, consumer needs are changing. Pivot, be ready, stay current, be on your toes. That's how I think you prepare for the unexpected as best as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great points, Gillian. And I think, one of the themes from Darin and you both is change. Change is happening. The supply chain is changing, and companies spend a lot of money and time and effort making sure that they're into the latest and greatest supply chain. They're set up for online ordering. They're set up for last mile delivery by DoorDash or Uber or whoever. Well, you also have to practice to be prepared for the unexpected. If you never practice, things will have changed 5 times since you put your program together, and your program that was good in 2022 might be completely ineffective in 2024. Or even your program that was good in January of 2024 might be 50% ineffective by September of 2024. So you have to be asking yourself, is what I have in place today good enough for tomorrow? And I need to be thinking, not do I want to have something in place that works for today, but do I want to have something in place that works for the changing landscape? And so I have to practice, because practice shows me where the gaps are. Practice shows me where the need for improvement is. And so if I put great programs together, but never practice the pace of change today, your program is going to quickly become obsolete, and you're going to be stuck unprepared when the unexpected happened, even though you thought you were prepared. So with practice, I say you got to build that practice component in to make sure that you're current and you're prepared.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a really good point, Roger. It's as if there are some people out there who think that recall ready is a destination or a label or something to achieve. And it's not. It is a continuous improvement action that is going on. If you were to get a certificate that says you are recall ready, the minute it comes out of the printer, it's already out of date, essentially. You know what I mean? It's already, there's, it's not that there's no expiration date. It's that it's a continuous expiration date. If you are not actively engaged in preparing and testing and doing mock recalls, testing your systems, things of that nature, it becomes out of date so quickly. And in many cases, it's not even becoming out of date because of factors within your own company. You may be selling a product to a distributor, a retailer, and things change at that level of that kind of the spectrum from farm to fork kind of a thing. So if you're not even aware of where your product is getting or how it's getting to the consumers or being used by the consumers, even though again it's beyond your involvement, that in itself makes you out of date, if you will, in terms of being recall ready.
Yeah, there are a lot more aspects that are involved in getting safe food from the farm to the manufacturer to the point of sales and to the consumer. And as you said, yeah, the transportation is also a huge topic that is often forgotten, that needs to be taken into consideration, because that is often where contamination happens. And you need to be prepared there, and you need to be aware how things can become contaminated. So yeah.
Stephanie, I would add too to what Darin was saying there. In my days back working with Wegmans, two-way communication with the customer was paramount. Okay, so it's not just all, the customer saying what their issues are or what their compliments are or whatever they are, but questions, and it worked two ways. And then Wegmans in turn saying, hey, here's our position, here's what we're doing, etc. In the same vein, that two-way communication needs to extend to your suppliers. So wherever you are in the supply chain, forward, one step forward, well, all of it actually, in my opinion, you need to be in communication with what's really happening. Stuff happens quickly, all right? Heads ups can be very valuable. Okay, if something is changing in real time, a heads up or an awareness level can get you moving quickly. So I'm just going to emphasize big time communication, two-way communication all along the supply chain. Really important.
Yeah, and that's always often forgotten. I mean, you communicate within your own company, but then you forget the rest of the supply chain. And yeah, that's when things happen. Absolutely.
Can I add too that, you brought up a good point, many good points, but one of the points I want to point out is you're talking about how things move so quickly. I don't think that the consumer has any concept of how slow things move in terms of policy. Even we talk about FSMA. FSMA was passed in 2010, signed into law in 2011. So they started implementation in 2016. But there was work on it years before that in terms of trying to get better food safety and produce safety. Now we're talking about, we had the water quality testing and treatment elements delayed. And now with FSMA 204, even though we're supposed to be looking at implementation of new traceability and transparency type elements, now again, there's elements in terms of we need to slow this down, we need to do some pilot testing. There's such a delay when it comes to federal level policy, as opposed to just how fast things change at the retail restaurant consumer level. And it is always going to be that way. It's always going to be a situation where industry has the ability to make change faster than, again, federal policy.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Let me tie those two ideas together, because what's processing in my mind right now is, yes, things change. We see lots of things change in a recall. During a recall, things change. Communication is very, very challenging. Often you get one shot at communicating, especially to the public. They don't have any concept of the lag and the delay and the long process of building regulations. They don't have much concept of the steps in the supply chain that gets food for them to consume. And so we have to be really mindful of how are we communicating in a way that's going to drive some action. We have to notify in a way that lets people make the decision, do I eat this or not? Do I consume this or not? Do I feed this to my family or not? And so being very mindful of communicating in a way that is received in a timely manner, in an understandable way that drives some action, some decision, is something that a lot of thought has to go into. The typical press release, there was this product being recalled from these 3 states because of this problem, isn't really going to help people make that decision. Do I consume this? Do I give it to my family? What if it's half consumed still in my refrigerator? What do I do? So we need to be really thoughtful about how we communicate, because we're not going to get a lot of chances, because things are moving fast and things are changing. So how do we do that? And again, that's what practice allows you to measure your effectiveness in communicating and driving action.
By involving all of your supply chain into that practice.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not enough if you practice just within the company. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because of course you get it. It's your problem. You figured it out. Of course you understand it. But communicating to others so that they understand it, that's a different challenge.
Different story.
And that's why you have to practice. Yeah.
Yeah. And the best system or the best solution is worth nothing if you don't practice. I mean, you can have the most accurate product or solution out there, platform, but if you don't know how to use it, it's worthless. So it's you need to practice. So is there maybe as a like a magic wand kind of approach, or from your experience, what would you wish for? What would you say should be a preparation for the unexpected that is a suitable solution for companies? Anyone can start.
Okay, I'll start.
Go ahead.
My magic wand, as manufacturers across the globe practicing their recall process for their supply chain once a year, identifying gaps and taking steps to fix them. That's my magic wand. Once a year, manufacturers across the globe practicing removing product from their supply chain, their whole supply chain. Just once a year, practice that.
Yeah, that's not a big ask. Okay. What about the two of you?
I can go next, Darin, if that's okay. I like the magic wand idea. I'd say keep the consumer front and center, period. Okay. I would say actively listening to what's going on in your supply chain and forward to the consumer and back the whole way. Stay current. Stay current on what's out there in terms of science, in terms of best practice, in terms of technology, in terms of the consumer needs, and layering that on top of what Roger just said. Darin, over to you.
I have two magic wands, apparently. One is that non-perishable items or less perishable items, such as peanuts, are held until there's adequate testing before they go into commerce and before they go into peanut dust and into cake mixes and candy bars and things like that. The Peanut Corporation of America outbreak really opened our eyes in terms of how many different products were recalled, how many different types of products were recalled, and that there was foods that we didn't even realize there was peanut in that was impacted by this. We continue to have these recalls, and what mystifies me is why we're having recalls when they could have been more adequately tested before they were distributed. The second wand is, I wish that consumers had the ability with customer loyalty cards at grocery stores. Grocery stores, if you have a loyalty card, like your card when you or your phone number, sometimes just using your phone number when you go to checkout, they know exactly what you purchased. I really appreciate the grocery stores that reach out to you directly and say, hey, you purchased these on these dates, and please know that they were involved in a recall. We want you to take a look for these. When I was working with the Conference for Food Protection, the CDC wanted to make it such that the CDC, during a massive outbreak, multi-state outbreak, would be able to get access to communicate to consumers through the loyalty cards, and many retailers completely objected to that. I think that it's an easy way to get to the most people in terms of, we know that you brought this, that you purchased this item based on the SKU and all this information. Please check your pantry, please check your refrigerator for these items and take this action. I think that if there was that transparent of communication all the way to the consumers, it would actually build trust in the retailers that these actions are being taken to the benefit, like we've all said before, completely towards the benefit of the consumer.
Yes. And those are all great thoughts, great ideas, and great wands. Great use of your wands, everyone. Exactly. And yes, of course, that's what we're all here for, protecting the consumer, because in the end, we're all consumers, right? And we are affected. It's the same way as everyone else who eats, and we all eat. So yeah, we all have food, and that needs to be safer, and the quality needs to be up. And I think this is a good way to end the conversation. I'm really happy the three of you took the time to participate in this interview and have this amazing conversation about food safety and how to prepare for the unexpected. Thank you so much. I know it's been challenging with time differences and everything, and so wonderful. I'll post this for the World Food Safety Day, and I'm sure people will benefit from listening to it. And yeah, it's just great talking to such amazing experts. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Stephanie. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thanks for this
Thank you.
opportunity.
Of course.
Thanks, Darin.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Gillian.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. This has been a special edition of Industry Insights in honor of World Food Safety Day 2024. Thank you for your attention and see you again soon. Bye!